What is a hero? A mythological figure, often of divine descent, endowed with great strength or ability? An illustrious warrior? No. It's a person admired for achievements and noble qualities, one who shows great courage. Welcome to the What's a Hero podcast, where we dive deep into what a hero is and what makes them that hero. I'm your host, Ken Frownfelter, and I'm going to be introducing you to some of the world's most likely and unlikely heroes. You may have never heard of them before, and they most likely have never met you. But they all have one thing in common. They are ready to do whatever it takes to help make you better, even if it means sacrificing everything for you. Let's get into it.
This is episode 81 of the What's a Hero podcast with me, Ken Frownfelter. A person commits criminal homicide if, without justification or excuse, the person intentionally, knowingly, recklessly, or with criminal negligence causes the death of another human being. Criminal homicide is murder, manslaughter, criminally negligent homicide, or aggravated vehicular homicide. And a human being means a person who has been born and was alive at the time of the criminal act. These are all things that we know. It's obvious. We understand what homicide is. We understand what murder is. And this is the definition of what criminal homicide is according to the state of Oregon. Now, with that, why am I reading this? Why am I talking about this? Because when people die, there's a dead body that is located somewhere, doesn't matter where, whether it's after a crash, whether it's after domestic violence, whether it's just because of somebody was found asleep in their bed and turns out they weren't asleep, they're actually dead. It is investigated before it is determined what caused that. So we have to determine that cause of the death before we can go any further. So we treat everything on the worst case scenario. Worst case scenario is criminal homicide. If we have to look at it like that, that means when we start digging into it, we have to determine what caused the death. Was it blunt force trauma? Was there some kind of something that was introduced into the body that does not belong in there? Was there more holes in this person than what they were born with? Were they just sick? Were they poisoned? Were they whatever? Did they have congestive heart failure? Did they have some kind of medical issue? But those are things we have to look at. But first we say, okay, is somebody responsible for this? And if we can figure that out and we can start dropping that down, we're good. We can start looking at it as a non-criminal case. However, when we start looking into this and we start saying, hey, there's more to this, and I'm not exactly sure just by looking at the outside of this person to determine what the person's manner of death is, we start getting more into detail about, well, how did this person die? And if we can start figuring out what caused this person to die, we can go a little further and say, hey, is this somebody responsible? But not everybody can do it just by looking at it. We actually need trained professionals to go inside the person's body and figure out what caused them to die. Well, not only that, you need, a lot of places call that a coroner or whatever. We actually have in the state of Oregon have people who are medicological death investigators, and they actually go into that and they look at it from the inside out medically. So not only do we have what that person does, but I'm going to go on a side note and kind of talk about another thing, and that is a sexual assault nurse examiner. And that is a registered nurse who has received special training so that he or she can provide comprehensive care to sexual assault victims. In addition, they are able to conduct forensic exams and may provide expert testimony if case goes to trial. So once again, we have another person that looks at things medically, and that's once again a nurse that does that. Now, why am I bringing this up? Because today's guest is actually a medicological death investigator and a SANE nurse. Now, SANE nurse is I'm kind of being redundant there because a sexual assault nurse examiner. If I say nurse again, I'm just speaking from the Department of Redundancy Department. I don't want to do that. So we're just going to call it a SANE, right? And she is also a family nurse practitioner student. So what we have today is somebody who has spent their life doing things for other people and looking into how they can honor those people and help bring the fact that they're victims of something to light, and we can then share that information with law enforcement. Law enforcement can then arrest those people who are doing things they shouldn't be doing. Nevertheless, I'd like to welcome to the show Nurse Lindsay. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Ken.
Good.
Thanks for having me. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, you're very welcome for being here. Like I said, don't be nervous. It's all good. It's all good fun, and everybody that's listening already likes you because I've said all these good things that you, these cool things that you do. But you can answer some questions that we don't normally get. We watch movies or whatever, and we're like, oh, they just said do this, and there's a little bit more to it, and you can probably shed some light on it tonight. But what's going on? What do you? Who is Lindsay?
Well, Lindsay is a registered nurse, first and foremost. I've been a nurse for 10 years. My primary background and my dream when I was in nursing school was to be an ER nurse. And so that's what I did. And that's where I met you, actually.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so I started out in the emergency room at my local hospital, community hospital. And back then, this would have been 2013, a few of us nurses were asked if we wanted to be SANEs. And SANE stands for Sexual Assault Nurse Examiner. So a couple of us volunteered. I thought it was really interesting. We got paid to take a week off and go out of town for a training. And I was all up for anything that was not work in the ER at that point. I was ready for a change of scenery. So a couple of us went and we had a really good time. We went to Eugene to get our training.
Eugene, Oregon?
Yeah. So that was a 40-hour course put on by the Sexual Assault Task Force. And so in Oregon, to become a SANE, you have to take this 40-hour course. So we were there for 5 days doing that. And then after that, we were considered SANE trained, but not certified. So any nurse will tell you, you always want to go on to get more certifications and feathers in your cap. So the next thing all of us did was work on our certification. So that meant that we had to have a few of exams under our belt and have those reviewed by the state board and critiqued. Mm-hmm. Had to go to the DA's office, meet with the district attorney. We had to do a ride along with the police officer. We had to attend a trial for preferably a SANE case. Those are not super common, but if you could sit in on one, that was great because you will get subpoenaed to testify in court. So all those things we were working on, and we shared call 24/7. And whenever a sexual assault patient presented to the ER, one of us took that patient. We were 1-to-1 for 4 to 5 hours with it. And you work closely with law enforcement, with the ER doctor. You're taking care of their medical needs first and foremost, but also the criminal side of things. You're trying to collect evidence and get a thorough history. Consider, was this drug facilitated sexual assault? Were they strangled? Do they have a memory lapse? We need to investigate the reason for that. So there's so many pieces that go into it. So that's how I got my foot in the door with forensic nursing all those years ago. Right. And now my job has changed drastically.
So you said you were there for 4 to 5 hours with these victims, right?
Yeah, sometimes.
And so you're there with them for 4 to 5 hours, but then when you said you get called out for that. So you could be at home. It could be 3:00 in the morning and you're sleeping or whatever. And you get called out at 3:00 in the morning for 4 or 5 hours. It's not just a quick, all right, I'll be in there for a half hour, do, some paperwork, do whatever, and then get back home, back in bed. You're now up.
You're awake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's okay. I want to get into that. But before we go deeper into that, let's go back in time. Let's go real far back in time. Who was little Lindsay? Who is this little kid that ran around or walked around or whatever it is you did? I'm going to assume you ran around. But who was this little kid? What did she do? What was her thing?
Yeah, little Lindsay was a cowgirl. So I grew up with horses and I was a country girl, and I rodeoed and barrel raced and high school equestrian team, high school rodeo, all that stuff. So my dream was to be a professional barrel racer. What little girl wouldn't want to do that? But when it comes to paying the bills, that doesn't do it. So my second choice was to have a career where I had job security, I had good pay, and I helped people. So I fell into nursing. No one in my family was in healthcare.
But you wanted, so all through school and all that stuff was just focused on barrel racing. You wanted to just go ride horses, or did you have any other fallback plans?
No, not really. I mean, I knew I was going to go to college. I got a scholarship to go to community college where I grew up in Bend, and that was great. But I took a intro to health occupations class, and that's what led me to nursing ultimately. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I like I said, I knew that I wanted to do something that helped people. Barrel racing, that's an adrenaline rush. So I knew that I liked that. And that's kind of what led me into the ER. So I knew that if I was going to be a nurse, it'd have to be something really cool like that.
So it led you into the ER, you didn't get taken into the ER. Right?
I chose that path.
Okay. So somebody didn't carry you in on some
No,
kind of...
I wasn't on
Perfect.
a psych hold or anything like that. No.
Perfect.
No.
So, but were you, other than riding horses and doing all this stuff, did you do other sports or anything like that? Or was it?
That was my sport. That was a year-round sport. That is a job in itself, taking care of another animal.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I hauled my horses everywhere with a camper on the back of the truck and my horse trailer. And I mean, I drank the Kool-Aid. I did it all. So
the hats and the rodeos and you smelled hay all the time, and you were there.
I was in it.
That's cool. That's cool. And that's how you grew up, and your parents were totally supportive of that lifestyle, obviously, because
they didn't know what they were getting into, but it was the best thing because it kept me away from boys. So they were thrilled about that.
Perfect.
I had time for anything else.
That's perfect. And so you get through school with the intent. Did you know you were going to go to it? Were you trying to figure it out throughout school, or was it in your senior year you figured, I think I'll go to college for nursing? Or
I knew I was going to COCC, which is the community college in Bend. I had a scholarship there and it was almost completely covered, but I just really didn't know what I wanted to do. At that time I was working retail and I didn't really have a passion for anything other than horses, but I guess one story that comes to mind that sort of led me there is another girl was riding her horse and she fell off. And, for high schoolers, you had to wear a helmet, which is good. Mm-hmm. But everybody was helmeted. And so she fell and she had a pretty bad concussion. And I think there is concern for like a broken or a sprained ankle. And so I just remember watching the paramedics that were on standby go and help her. And so that was sort of my first introduction into what first responders do. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was cool. And I do actually remember, now that we're talking about this, is the NFR is the National Finals Rodeo. Mm-hmm. And I always thought that it would be really cool to be a paramedic or on-staff doctor or nurse or whoever is the medical person there at the NFR, because guaranteed you're going to have injuries when they're bull riding and bronc riding.
Sure.
And everything. So yeah, I do, now that we're talking about this, remember having that as a dream. So, but I took that intro to health occupations class, and with the encouragement of my dad, who thought nursing would be a smart career move, I applied to OHSU and I got in, and I thought, okay, I guess I'm going to be a nurse. And then I just went for it. And that was 10 years ago. And it's been great. It's been nice, especially because I can do so many different types of nursing. I can live anywhere in the world. Travel nursing's a thing. Obviously, that's huge these days, especially with COVID. You pick up and go easy.
Right.
So that was always appealing to me.
Well, I got a question. Why? What was it? You said that you wanted to do something to help people. Why? Because there's so many people that don't care about other people. What drew you to, I want to help people, I want to do that?
I don't have a solid reason. I just, I don't know. I've never thought about that really, but that's just been my feeling is I knew I wanted to help people.
It's just intrinsic. It's just in there. It just says that you got to do that.
Yeah.
I think that's just how some people are wired. They do whatever. And you can say, well, why do you do that? I don't know. I mean, why do I like hamburgers and not leg of lamb? I don't know. I do. It is what it is. So
yeah.
I don't.
Well, and you're asking questions I've never really thought deeply about. And
welcome to the show.
Anyway,
there you go.
Here we are.
That's what we do here. We get you. No, I'm just kidding. We don't get you. But no, that's cool. I mean, because a lot of people don't. I mean, and I've asked officers this, and I've had a couple on here, and I've said, we've talked about what the reason for your why is, and they say, it's this or it's that, or they put themselves in that situation. But as a young person, we don't know, and I think there's a point where we don't know why we do things. And like you said, your dad was like, "That's a great idea. Go for it. I will support you in being a nurse," because he knows the value of it. But as a kid, you're like, I just want to help you. I want to do what's good. I want to do what's right. I want to make my parents happy. I want to make them proud. I'd like to do something that's valuable and honorable. But I guess helping people is a good thing. I like people. They're my friends and they're my loved ones. And so,
better than hurting people.
That's true sometimes.
Yeah.
But as our good friend Tim Larkin likes to say, sometimes violence is the answer. But not today, not right now, and not with Nurse Lindsay. But so you go to school, you are there doing go to OHSU, and did you get your bachelor's?
Yeah. Right out of the gate, I got my BSN. I was motivated to do that. I knew I did not want to go back to school, yet 10 years later, that's exactly what I'm doing. But I thought, one and done, just do it. I knew that a lot of hospitals were choosing to hire BSN nurses over associate's degree nurses. I'm not saying that's right, but I knew that at the time, that's what the trend was. I knew you got paid a little bit more when you had your bachelor's. And like I said, I applied to one program and I got in. So I was really lucky. Not other people were so lucky and had to apply a couple of years in a row. So Once I got in, it was a rude awakening because I did not know what it meant to be a nurse. And I was shocked.
What shocked you? What was it wasn't just, holding the bandages for the doctor to put bandages on somebody. It was more to it. Is that what it was?
Well, yeah. I mean, I had never had experience being a patient. I was always healthy as a kid. I'd never had surgeries or anything. My parents were healthy. But it was just a rude awakening of an immense amount of expectation and pressure and knowledge that you had to have. You cannot fake it as a nurse, a healthcare provider. You are making life and death decisions and doing things that can hurt or kill somebody every single day. So, I mean, it just was a serious, this isn't going to be easy money. You're going to work your butt off 12 and a half hours, 3 days a week at least. And, it's just all the political things that come into play, which were frustrating because, every nurse goes into it wanting to be Florence Nightingale and have the best of intentions, but then you have management just breathing down your neck and patient satisfaction scores and crap like that, where you just get so bogged down and it takes away from the job that you're trying to do, which is help people and, make their experience a little bit better because their day is certainly worse than yours. But yeah, so the ER, I wound up there because I liked that adrenaline, and I knew if I was going to be a nurse, I wanted to be a badass nurse, and that meant working in the ER. And I knew myself well enough to know I don't want patients for 5 days at a time or every single shift. I want them in, and then I want them out. I want to meet those people and have those experiences, and then goodbye. They get to leave.
And so that was your first thing, was going to the ER. right from school, getting your nursing degree and all that stuff like that?
Yeah, because I knew that's what I wanted. I was strategic. So I was working as an ER tech while in nursing school. So I knew that in my community, having that job, I would make my presence known. I would show what a good worker I was as a tech. Mm-hmm. Everybody knew I was in nursing school. So my clinicals, my placement, my last year was in the ER that I currently worked, or I should say at that time presently worked. And yeah, then it led to a job offer. So that's what I'd recommend anybody to do if they can get their foot in the door somehow.
So do you have to intern? Or did you get paid a little something while you were during that time?
Well, as an ER tech, I was a paid employee, but when I was there for nursing clinicals, no, that wasn't paid. It was just part of my schooling.
Oh, okay.
They had a contract with the hospital system that I worked for. I see. Worked for and wanted to work for upon graduation. And so,
but they said once you got through there and you got graduated,
mm-hmm.
you graduated, they were like, okay, yeah, we want to hire you. We like the cut of your jib. We like how you did what you do and your work ethic and blah, blah, blah. And they said, let's hire you on. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of a relief. I'm assuming a lot of nurses, people that go through nursing school, don't necessarily have to worry about finding a job when they get out. Correct?
Yeah, I don't think you would worry about finding a job. It's just a matter of a job that you'd want. So if you're wanting a specialty area like ICU or labor and delivery, ER, something like that, if you do something like I did where you already work in some capacity, maybe as a CNA or a tech or MA or whatever, mm-hmm. EMT, then you're making your presence known, you're showing who you are, as a potential employee. And generally speaking, they want to reward that. They want to have people stay in-house and train them from the bottom up. So, a lot of people started out as like a CNA or housekeeping or even like working in the kitchen. And from the bottom up, they continued their schooling and worked hard and figured out what they wanted. And the hospital, hopefully will recognize that, support them, maybe pay for some of their schooling, and then continue to rehire them in their new capacity. So that's best case. And that's exactly what I did.
Yeah. You started out the bottom and you just climbed the ranks through there. That is super cool. When you're in there, you're working there and you're in your, early 20s now in the ER, right?
Yeah, I was 20. I had just turned 22 when I graduated.
And so you're going through this whole thing and you're figuring out, not only are you figuring out that, but you're figuring out life in general, because that's a formative time of our life, right? As, early 20s, and you start figuring out all the different things. Did you learn a little bit more about life a little bit quicker based off of ailments and the way people were acting and then the interactions with plethora of people coming in and out of the ER?
Yeah. What better place than the ER? You see literally all walks of life.
Right.
Yeah. And you see
health affects every demographic.
Yes. Yeah. The consequences of decisions that you make will always catch up to you. And that's what you see in the ER.
Right. And so you get to do that. And you said you did that for about 10 years. Is that right? ER?
Well, I've been a nurse for 10 years. I've been in the ER a bulk of that. But like I alluded to before, the benefit of being a nurse is you can travel. And so I picked up and moved to Hawaii there for a couple of years. I worked in the ER there.
Oh, yeah.
And then I came back.
Is that a lot of shark bites and surfing accidents?
It was. That was I believe they called it an El Nino year, but it was warmer weather than usual. So the ocean waters heated up more than usual. And so that, I guess, killed some of the like reefs and stuff. And so everything had to move closer inland to feed. So yeah, that actually resulted in an abnormally high number of shark bites that particular year that I was there.
I was just totally making a joke, but
no, it's real. Yeah.
All right. That makes sense.
Taking care of shark bite patients. Yep.
So you work in Hawaii and you're loving every minute in Hawaii and still just doing the ER. Did you have an idea of a specialty that you wanted to do, or did you say I'm going to work in the ER my whole career?
mostly wanted to stick it out. When I was in the town I started out, it's a small level 3 trauma hospital. And that means that we'll get cases, they'll come in, we'll stabilize them, and typically then we'll transfer to a higher acuity facility. And my goal was to get more trauma experience. Mm-hmm. So I wanted, and then also just because of my age, I was ready for like a change and I wanted to live in a city. Mm-hmm. I'm a summer girl and a beach girl. And so I thought I'll apply to Queen's Medical Center in Hawaii. And then, I got the job. So that was crazy. And I sold all my things, including my precious truck that I miss so much. I can't believe I did that. And I moved to Hawaii. So I moved to Oahu, and I worked at Queen's, which is a level, I guess it's a level 1 trauma center. And so we would see people from all over, all the islands, and then further out, even the Philippines. You'd get people life flighted in from different countries.
Oh, wow. And so level 1 is the peak, right? That's the ultimate.
Yeah, you've got every specialist right there at your fingertips. You've got, in theory, everything you could need to take care of somebody.
Right. Okay. So you're working, doing that in Hawaii, loving every minute, surfing and beach going and all that stuff when you're not at work. And then mm-hmm. when you're at work, you're seeing everything that you can imagine, because everybody's coming in there from all over the world. Yes. And then you said you were there for a little while, what, a couple years? And then you said,
2 years.
I want to go back to the mainland because I get a little island fever here. Or
yes, exactly. That's a thing. Yeah. And I didn't like that I couldn't road trip anymore. You're just driving around in a circle on the island with the most horrendous traffic you've ever imagined. And I didn't know, but I would miss the seasons.
Yeah.
The constant 80 degrees and sunny got a little tiresome after a while.
I can imagine. Yeah. When you want Christmas, you want snow, and you want, colder weather, and you want to be able to bundle up and go watch a Christmas tree.
It's not supposed to wear board shorts.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre.
Yeah. So you moved back to the States, or I guess back to the mainland, because Hawaii is a state, but you moved back to the mainland, and did you go get a job back at the same hospital that you were working before, or did you?
I went back to Bend, where I grew up. Uh-huh. So I missed that area quite a bit. And so let me back up. When I was in Hawaii, they actually don't utilize SANE nurses there, at least not when I lived there. Mm-hmm. So I had to take a break. So when I was there, I was not practicing as a SANE. And when I moved back to Oregon, I had to retake all of my training to re-up my certification as a SANE. So I've now done that entire process twice.
So now so that story you told us at the beginning of you having to go and spend that week with a couple of nurses and doing all the training, that was before Hawaii.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And so you go from doing that on the mainland, going over to Hawaii, and then from Hawaii come back here, and now you wanted to maintain, you wanted to keep doing SANE stuff. Yeah. Did they have anything similar to that over there that you got to do, or just not?
Yeah, so every community works differently, every county and every state. So here in the county that you and I both are living in, we operate one way. And then when I lived in Bend, it was different. So I've seen and done it all. I've experienced all different ways you can be a SANE nurse. But in the end, it just comes down to a number of SANE nurses have to provide 24/7 coverage. So in the end, everybody is taking call and having to be available to respond to various hospitals or hospital systems in your county or your area. I mean, it really is so different how it can work. Because in Bend, we would respond to 4 hospitals in 3 different counties. Mm-hmm. So you traveled quite a ways. And you had to know how things worked within each county, what law enforcement agency that is, what dispatch number to call. So it's varied in how this world works.
I see. And so was it, and you did want to maintain doing that SANE stuff in Hawaii. And so did you do their version while you were there? Or
no, they didn't use nurses at all. So They had one hospital that any patient on the island would go to, and a physician would do the exam.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. All right.
So,
And you guys, you just weren't involved.
Nope.
Oh.
Nope. I took a break.
So obviously here they go ahead and they have the nurses do all that work because the doctors are busy doing doctor stuff.
Yeah. So here, it's a company that I work for that does all of the training for the nurses. Once you've gotten your 40 hours of training from the state, then you get further trained to see how it's done locally in your community. And so that's job shadowing other nurses. And then once you've seen a few exams, then someone will watch you and critique you and make sure you're doing things okay. And then finally you're set free to take a call all by yourself.
Right. And obviously as nurses, guys can be SANE nurses also, but but it's very rare, right?
Yeah, it is very rare. Yeah.
And the reason I'm asking, because as you start getting into it, the majority of rape victims, at least ones that are going to go to the hospital for examination and stuff like that, are going to be females.
Right.
And obviously they're going to be much more comfortable with a female nurse doing their examination, doing all the things that they need to do. And then you have a specific disposition, I would assume, a better bedside manner. I'm not saying that a guy would have, but because you can put yourself in that position or in their shoes for a certain amount. Am I close to?
Yeah, broadly speaking, I would agree with that. But of course, there's variation, because I liken it to if I'm going to get my pap smear in an annual exam, I'd prefer a female.
Sure.
I'm more comfortable with that. But if there was a male doctor doing that and he was a great doctor that just made me feel comfortable and gender wasn't a part of it, then yeah, I would trust that person to take care of me. And from what I've heard, it's the same for male SANE nurses. In general, I think most people are fairly willing to accept a male SANE, knowing that they have a vested interest in what they're doing. They're not a predator. They're there to help them.
Right.
They have the exact same training that a female would. It's just he looks different. And that is a complicated thing to answer. But I think broadly speaking, there aren't a lot of male SANEs out there for obvious reasons.
So it's going to be a case-by-case basis then.
Mm-hmm. Because, advocates will respond to these SANE patients. You have advocacy centers in every community. So there are advocates on call that we will always call when there's a SANE exam. And there's a fair amount of male advocates I've worked with.
Right.
So, no, they won't be there for the physical exam piece, but they might be comforting to the person.
Sure.
And they can always say no. So,
and it's,
I've never personally met a male SANE, so I can't speak to what that's like, but I can tell you.
The unicorn.
They are.
We exist. They exist, but we don't know where we've not seen them. So,
yeah. And also when you get a patient and they've presented to the ER for sexual assault and you get an ER doc that's a female, they can be just as big a jerks as a male, doctor can, and same with law enforcement.
Yeah.
You might expect a female doctor or officer to be more compassionate, but sometimes they're the bigger asshole than a lot of the guys.
Sure.
So
yeah, and I guess like we said, it's case by case, but it's also people are people. Are people. I mean, it's the bottom line is that in any job we all get overwhelmed, or we all get frustrated. We see the same thing over and over, and then we start, blame casting or whatever. And we have to remember that not everything's the same. And just because you had a liar or whatever on the last case you worked doesn't mean that now you're going to have that same thing. And we have to be professional enough to treat people with compassion because they're there for a reason, and whether it was something they did to themselves or something somebody else did to them. So it's very
similar working with patients in the ER. You can get compassion fatigue with that because you get your frequent flyers and people that come in and abuse their resources over and over and over, and you give them everything they could possibly need on the outside, and they just don't want to do it. And yeah, it's the same. It's
right.
Same concept, different patient population.
Right. So you work in there, you're being an ER nurse and a SANE, and you're doing all these nurse related activities in regards to working in the ER. And how long did you do that? How long did you were in the ER?
Well, I've had a few other jobs here and there sprinkled in. That's one of the things I'm guilty of, is just having a lot of interest. So I'll pick up a PRN job here and there and work something completely different. Yeah. But I guess broadly speaking, I've been an ER nurse for about probably 6 of those 10 years of nursing. And then everything else I've done has been, I was a corrections nurse. I was a psych nurse. I did case management, outpatient surgery. But SANE is the one thing I've always done.
Yeah. And do you find that rewarding?
SANE nursing?
Yeah.
Yes. Very. That's the one thing that I want to always continue to do.
Right. And because as a nurse, or even if, like I mentioned before, you're looking at being an FNP, you can still go back and you can maintain that SANE nurse certification and whatnot. Yeah. Do you find that, obviously there's value in it, but what is the thing that makes you want to keep going back and doing it, as opposed to, yes, we want to make sure we want to get vindication for these victims, but what's the thing that drives you to want to do that?
Yeah, I think just kind of being a calm presence in the moment that they're having the worst night of their life. I compartmentalize very well. And so even if somebody is extremely emotional, I'm pretty even keeled, and I try to break down what I'm saying into something very basic that they'll understand. I love that there is always something to learn with forensic nursing in general. SANE exams, the science behind things changes all the time. The way that we practice changes accordingly. Learning the psychology of people experiencing trauma is huge. I've always loved psychology, so I think that's fascinating. And then I've always had a really strong interest in the criminal side of things. And I think knowing what I know now, if I had to go back in time, if I wasn't a nurse, I would have been a cop. I just think it's such a great thing. It's badass. I'd have been good at it. I love that the forensic jobs that I have, they marry very well with law enforcement. I have a very close relationship with them. The prosecuting side, same thing. I found this amazing little world of forensic nursing. It took me a while to get here, but I just enjoy, like I said, I'm just like the ER, these patients, they come and go. You're only with them for a little bit of time. And I always tell them, this is probably the last time you're going to see me after this exam is finished. But, you just learn a lot about a person in that short amount of time. And if you want to talk about a grateful patient, it's helping somebody that's just been sexually assaulted.
Right.
And they're with somebody that knows what to say, knows what to do, is comforting, and is there to just take care of them.
Do you ever get those people that they don't want you there? They obviously they don't want to be there doing that. You get those people that are just blaming everybody for their situation, even though you're trying to be there to help them?
Yeah, that's rare.
Is that rare? Okay. What is the other, on the other side of that, do you get those people? Have you developed relationships with people and by that I mean friendships and something where people, you now have developed almost a sisterhood with these women who come in?
No, I don't ever talk to them. They don't have my information. I'll never typically see them again.
Okay.
So it is a very short relationship. But
do you ever feel a connection with them, because you're trying to help them, you're trying to do something, and obviously on a professional level, that the empathy with them and is there a connection ever in anything like that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a lot of self-blame that happens with people that come in because it's very often related to drugs or alcohol that, both sides are consuming. And so then when something happens or it goes too far further than they intended it to, you're going to blame yourself. So when you're listening to them tell their story and recall what happened, there is just a lot of inherent self-blame that occurs. And so that's hard to separate yourself from, because you can tell somebody it's not their fault a million times, but it's not going to register until they believe it themselves.
Right.
So the point of being a good, sane nurse is trying to give that victim back some level of control. So, if they don't want to participate, like, they don't have to,
right.
And they have to consent to the exam. They have to be willing, and they can tell me no at any time. So if they change their mind and say, I don't want this, then okay, that's fine. Like, if you don't want this, go home and take a nap, sleep, see how you feel tomorrow.
Right.
So
what is and we're looking at it, I guess, from a position from, I guess, the outside in, with very limited information, unless you've been in that position before or somebody who's been in that situation. What is a time frame? Like, if something were to happen, how long after the incident would somebody be able to go and have their exam completed and evidence still be able to be collected?
120 hours.
120 hours.
Nationwide. That's, broadly speaking, what the International Association of Forensic Nurses will say. And jurisdictionally, that could change. But where I live and work, we do follow that 120 hours. So as long as the assaults occurred within that time frame, we can do a full exam with evidence collection. There's a high likelihood of getting DNA. We will pay for your exam, so they don't have to worry about that. If they're insured or not, that doesn't matter. You're going to have that exam covered.
Right. So if you know somebody that there's an inkling of it, and they're within that 120 hours, encourage them to go get this done, talk to their law enforcement, or go to the hospital and say, I want to report this. I want to get this done because it's not okay. And I'm going to guarantee you agree with me. It's not okay that somebody victimizes somebody else for their own gratification.
Right.
No matter what. So that just put it out there.
I mean, depending on where you live, I would say the ER is probably nearly 100% the best place to go, unless you had like a freestanding facility that might exist in your community. But broadly speaking, if you go to the ER, you will at least make sure that your body is okay, that it's, we haven't missed anything major, like some laceration or something where you're bleeding, profusely. Right. They'll at minimum make sure that your body is okay and you're safe. We'll prophylactically treat you for STIs and pregnancy. We'll do a risk assessment for HIV. So all of those things will be discussed. It is going to be information overload no matter what. You'll at least leave there with more information than you had. You'll have an advocate, hopefully, that comes to you and can be a liaison. Law enforcement typically will come. A victim has the right to say, I want an anonymous kit. So they do have the option to say, I'm not sure if I want to report to law enforcement right now, but I do want you to collect evidence and then I'll think on it. So in Oregon, we'll keep that for 60 years. You have 60 years to decide if you want to have that evidence looked at and if you want to report to law enforcement later.
And we got plenty of time to prosecute that too, if that's the case. So
that's
yes,
right.
Absolutely. And that's cool.
Yeah. And that's all assuming you're like not a minor or not an elderly person or a disabled person, mentally ill. I mean, there's other factors that come into play.
Right. We want to make sure there's no child abuse, elder abuse, anything like that, any kind of abuse that's going on by a caregiver or by somebody that is supposed to be watching out for you. And they've done this.
Yeah. So mandatory reporting does come into play. But if you're, 18 and up and you want to anonymously report, then you should be able to do that.
Right. Right. So during this whole time, you're doing all this and you're still working in the ER. You're seeing everything from car crash victims to horse throwing victims. You're seeing, just your basic person that has the flu come into the ER. You're seeing all sorts of everybody coming in. And like I said before, you're seeing this wide variety of people and things and everything else. What is the most gratifying about that for you? What do you see as being gratifying about that?
Well, it's called emergency department for a reason. Sure. So that's the stuff that I really like, is the stuff where it's urgent, emergent. You gotta get in there and do your job well with a team. So that's one of the things I liked the most about the ER, was the team concept. Everybody's there to help each other. Everybody's got a role. Generally, you work very closely with your coworkers, your doctors, and everybody in between. And you just have that familial relationship where you become very tight and you know who's good at what and who to trust. And, everybody pitches in and does their job.
Right.
So I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the variety of the different types of patients we had. Sometimes it was nice to just have somebody with a stub toe. You didn't.
This is easy. I can put some gauze on here.
Yeah, I got this.
Yeah. I'll tell you one that I went in one time. We brought a guy in that had a self-inflicted gunshot wound, and the entire team got to work right away. And I mean, I'd seen them all, and they're in there for however long that they would be on a shift, and they're just kind of going through, shuffling papers and doing all things that they do. But when that came in, it was like everybody was focused on that, doing their job. And when somebody would say, I need this, we got to get this, moving, and everybody's just moving. I was like, wow, and you don't see that too often, except for on those types of situations. You come in there and there's just, every room is filled with stub toes, like you said. Okay. And everybody's just, yeah, I'll get to it in a second. I got to do all these different things. But then when you see that trauma come in, that main thing coming on, like you said, it is very impressive. And I'll tell you, when I saw, I've seen several, but that one specifically was very impressive to see everybody working their butt off to try to do the right thing and try to save this person from the choices they made. And it was very cool to see that people are sitting around, or not sitting around, standing around. Everybody's around that table trying to work on this person.
Yeah, there's the palpable like energy that you feel, because everybody's got their adrenaline going. It's exciting. Yeah,
I would say that's the appropriate word is that palpable energy. And it's infectious. You feel that. It's like, what can I do? You're a cop. Stay out of the way. No, but I want to do something. Go hold up that wall. I mean, whatever the case is, it means get out of the way. But you feel that energy. It's very cool to see everybody working. And no matter what the outcome is, you still see that energy that everybody's putting out there. And so when that case unfortunately, that young man did not live, but, I went over and I went over to talk to the doctor later, and I said, hey, and he was obviously distraught. He was just kind of sitting there like, dang it, man. We didn't save him. And I was like, you did everything you could. And I thought it was fantastic what you did try and what you were doing. And he was like, almost like, yeah, who, this is weird that you're telling me this. I don't normally hear this sort of thing. Is that because everybody's so working on it and everybody's still emotional about it? Is there not a lot of feedback for each other at the immediate end of those things?
No, I mean, sometimes there'll be a debrief for something horrible, like pediatric deaths. Everyone can agree that's horrible. Yep, so for something like that, you'll have a debrief. I can tell you, I've never had a debrief for any of the cases I've ever had. So it might just be bad luck, but I'd say, it sucks and that's really sad. But one of the traits of being a good nurse would be you have to just turn around and keep taking care of the other patients that are waiting for you.
Right. Well, lucky you, I've had several debriefs, so it's not the best. So anyways, so you work there, you do all that, and the opportunity then arises for you to move on in your career to make a switch from the ER. What happened there?
Well, so from Bend, I was ready to actually move back to where I currently live now. So that's where my family is. It's come full circle. It's where my very first job was. I kind of missed the small town. I was just ready to kind of put roots down somewhere. So it was very easy for me to go back and get my old job back. And that's what I did. But at that time, that was in the middle of COVID. So working in the ER sucked.
Right.
And I hated it. And so then I thought, well, maybe nursing is like done for me. I kind of need a break. And so I looked at being a real estate agent. I started to study for that. And I started to do all the stuff necessary to apply for law enforcement. I mean, I just thought, screw it. I've done this long enough. Like, I want to change. I don't care what the pay difference is. I just need something new where I'm going to learn something,
right,
and feel energized again. And I gave both a whirl, and for various reasons, neither worked out and neither really quite suited me. And I just, in the back of my head, couldn't give up the degree and the license I worked so hard for. Even though I had a lot more bad days than good, I wasn't ready to fully give it up. And I wasn't stupid. I knew that I needed to pay my bills and all that. I mean, nursing does that. And that's part of why I became a nurse. So sure. I couldn't let go of that. The practical side of me just said, don't do it. So, so when I was here working, I was told of a forensic nurse job that was posted for the county and that I would be like perfect for it. And I thought, okay, what is that? So I looked up the job description and it was insane. It was mostly death investigation related stuff, and also sexual assault, pediatric specific related stuff. And I thought, oh, what a happy job. Right. I won't be depressed.
Right.
And then the third piece was this public health piece. And then at the bottom, it said like, and other duties as assigned. And it also said like, you might be publicly scrutinized for decisions that you make. And, just all these things that I thought, well, they're not really casting this in a great light, but I thought forensic nurse investigator, that sounds pretty freaking cool. And I already was a pediatric SANE. I had all that training. That was easy. And I thought, dead bodies doesn't really sound like that's my jam. So I didn't apply for months, and the position was still there, and it just was nagging me. And a couple of friends that knew me and also worked for the county encouraged me to apply. And so finally I did. And I thought, well, I'll just interview. I'll see what it's about. And so, that was a year ago, and the rest is history. I interviewed, and then literally 20 minutes after the interview ended, I got the job offer.
Wow.
So I was like, well, is that because I'm the only one that's applied? I wasn't, but they knew that, of all the applicants they'd had, I was the most qualified. So I was like, all right, I'll take that as a compliment, I guess.
So I'm looking up the definition of forensics. And so forensics is relating to or denoting the application of scientific methods and techniques to the investigation of crime. So if you're putting that, so basically the scientific investigation side of whatever criminal activity occurred. And so then you're a nurse. So a forensic nurse is somebody that's going to deal with that. You would assume, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, nurses are the Robin to a Batman to a doctor being Batman. Is that close?
I see that. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you would have to be working for a doctor or with a doctor, right? As a nurse for the most part.
Well, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That is the best circumstance. And that is what is currently happening in my role. But traditionally, death investigators are not healthcare workers. And so what I think is so unique about my position is that, yes, I work with our medical examiner, who's a physician. I speak his language being a nurse. I speak all the medical speak. I know the terminology. I know the abbreviations. I know pathophysiology and medications and all those things. So it makes complete sense to have a medical person and a nurse specifically doing the job that I do. But a lot of places don't use nurses in that capacity. So what I'm doing currently is pretty unique. And I don't know of many other places in my state that do it this way, although I do know of one specifically, and she's one of the ones who trained me, and she's amazing.
Right.
So I am trying to emulate what somebody has already created, but it's interesting because you could have somebody doing my job that's also a detective, a law enforcement officer.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're a little more criminally minded. I mean, they're thinking of a potential crime that's occurred and instead of the medical side of things.
But so you get to look at things from that medical side. But
yeah.
But the fact that you had that little inkling that you wanted to maybe look into law enforcement, this might scratch that itch a little bit.
Totally satisfies that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though I want to be a badass in a uniform with a gun and drive code 3, I can't. But.
Sure. Well, I'll tell you that's all cool until you have to spend 4 hours sitting writing reports in all that gear, and
and I've learned that. I see the other side of it now.
Yeah.
But
and that happens. We
want a fast car.
We get to drive fast and carry a gun. Well, as a nurse, you may be able to afford one day, and if you become this,
I now drive a Subaru.
Okay. Well,
from a truck to a Subaru.
You can soup it up. It didn't. Yeah, you used to have like a Tacoma or something like that. You loved to death, if I'm not mistaken. That was
you're correct.
Yeah, that was the one you sold when you went to Hawaii, isn't it?
It's my biggest regret.
Yeah. Some people are like, "Oh, the one that got away," the boyfriend.
That's right. It's not a man; it's a truck.
Yeah. So you are now a forensic nurse. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And actually and I got to say this right, a medicological death investigator, not just a forensic
medical legal death investigator.
Medical legal. See, that's what that's why we have to have you on here. If I just tried to spurt a bunch of stuff out of my mouth with whatever it is I think I'm reading, I would get it wrong. So that's why I got
Yeah, well, the terminology has changed. So they used to be called DMEs or deputy medical examiners,
Mm-hmm.
but they changed that because they don't want those people to be accidentally thought of as being like a physician, like a medical examiner is. Mm-hmm. So now we're called MDIs, and that's Medicolegal Death Investigator, or MDI. So lots of abbreviations in this world.
Well, because everything in medical has to have 17 syllables per word. So that makes sense. It's good. Yeah. So did you have to go to extra school for that? Or you just, with what you can get right into it with a mentor, like the doctor that you work for?
Yeah. So I had to take another 40-hour course put on by the state. So this was by the state medical examiner's office. And so all of the people that took that course are still not considered medical legal death investigators. You have to be appointed. So my district attorney and my medical examiner both had to appoint me, and there's a formal process that went into that. And so now I'm official, and I work underneath our medical examiner, and I also work very closely with our district attorney, all our law enforcement agencies, but I'm employed by the county.
So with doing that, what are you finding to be one of the biggest hurdles as opposed to what you had been doing for the past 10 years? What are some of the biggest hurdles? Some of the things that you're just like, wow, I didn't see this coming. This is pretty cool. Or I didn't see this coming. This kind of sucks, but.
That's complicated. So I would say the biggest hurdle and thing that is suckiest is I'm not full-time, and I want to be. So there is no formal place to fund a position like mine. And so therefore it is not fully funded. It's not fully appreciated or recognized yet in the community. Nobody really knows what my job is, unless I tell you. And then suddenly you realize, oh, that is really important. I can't believe we didn't have that up until a year ago. Like, what the hell?
Right.
And so that's been my mission in this last year, has been figuring out what place do I have in the community? Why is it important? And who can I talk to prove how important it is? All the while looking for funding, grants, anything to get me to be full-time, because people don't just die 20 hours out of the week.
And so are there, because you're only there 20 hours a week, is there a backlog of of investigations that you have to do to try to fit in that 20 hours?
I just rely heavily on law enforcement agencies to help out. So there are MDIs, or I should say there's officers that are trained as MDIs within our different law enforcement agencies. So they know the job, but they are helping me out. They're helping out the DA's office. They're helping out the ME. They are not trained quite to the way that our medical examiner would like. And that's fine. I'm there to help them when I'm not on the clock. But best case would be to have, one person full-time training the rest. So we're all doing it the same way.
Right. So what is a day-to-day, I guess, within that 20 hours? But what is it? What do you get to do? What are you doing during that time?
Yeah. So my job can be mobile. It can be from home primarily, which is amazing. So I have a work computer and cell phone that I'm attached to all the time. And I will get notifications, whether by phone call or email, about someone who's died. And then the main goal is to figure out who's going to sign the death certificate. So death is considered a medical problem. We need to find out who will sign the death certificate. We need to find disposition of the body for the family, because if your loved ones died, you're not going to want to have to be waiting forever and ever to get that signed death certificate. You want that signed so you can take care of all of their affairs. Right. So you can plan for their cremation or their burial or whatever. So it's important to have that done. So before I got hired, that was a very lengthy process, because there wasn't just one person that was able to find out, does this person have a primary care doctor? Reach out to them and find out, are they willing to sign? And if not, then what? Well, that person becomes a medical examiner's case. But the medical examiner exists in one town. This is a completely different town and a different county. How is that process going to work? How can a doctor that knows nothing about this person, how can they sign a death certificate with no information? So my job is to find that. So I have access to medical records. When someone's died, I have full access to that. If I couldn't look up your records because you're alive, I have no reason to. But if you died, I could look them up.
Well, let's hope you never have to look at my records. How about that?
I don't know if I could.
But so are you? Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say that I'm kind of like an investigator. That's part of my title. I am investigating their medical history, what was happening leading up to them passing away. Was there anything suspicious? Was this potentially suicide? Do I need to make a report to DHS on behalf of this person? Maybe it was an elderly neglect case and they had a guardian that was not doing their job and they died under suspicious circumstances.
So those of you guys that are listening outside of the United States, or even in the United States, but outside of our general area, DHS is Department of Human Services. So like child welfare and adult protective services, things like that. And I know there's another DHS, Department of Homeland Security, not those guys. We're talking about human services at this point. And so those of you guys that are in other countries listening to this, that's what we mean. So it's human services, it's case workers and child services and things like that. That's what DHS is when we say DHS. So,
right.
So go ahead. What were you saying?
I was just going to say, as a nurse, I am a mandatory reporter, so I still have to follow that.
Right.
So in a pediatric death, or like I said before, a suspicious elderly death circumstance, or maybe somebody that's in a group home, you're just using your nursing brain as to, maybe I should look into this a little bit more, and it's not so straightforward.
Right. And you get to assist with autopsies and things like that?
Yeah, I do.
Was that something that you thought that you would get to do ever, being a nurse, or did you say, "Oh, I get to do that" when you found out about it, or what?
No, so that is a fun caveat. When I was in my prereqs for nursing school, I did anatomy, and we had a cadaver, but it was the reject of a medical school program. So he had been dissected a million times, and he was very fake looking. It was this crusty, old, dried up person. And so, the organs looked nothing like a real heart or lungs or anything, because they were so old and
they dried out.
So I just remember thinking, that's weird. And I never saw another dead person after that, except for when they were freshly dead in the ER and we had just called it. So, I mean, I'd never had any experience with a dead body up until this job. And this job I've seen hundreds at this point.
Yeah. First couple were a little bit, I guess, uneasy. And then
Absolutely.
And just now this is old hat at this point.
Well, it's still bizarre. I still think I have the weirdest job in the world. But yeah, my very first one I can remember, and it was an older person that died, and it was nothing suspicious, but that person didn't have a primary care doctor. So what you do is you go to the funeral home and do an external exam. And that's basically, for the nurses out there, a head to toe exam, just like you would on any living person, but they're dead. So you're looking them over to see, what do they look like? How would you describe them? Do they look malnourished? Do they have bruises? Do they have abrasions or just anything suspicious? Are they clean? Do they look like they're well kept? And that's just the basics. You know, with the training, you're learning things like petechiae and some subconjunctival hemorrhage or ligature marks, or just all these things that kind of come into play when it might be foul play or suicide or a drug user. What does that look like when somebody's using drugs? And so your eyes are you're exposed to so many more things than you would just a normal nurse or even just a normal person walking into that job. And also the way a person looks when they're dead is completely different than they look when they're alive. And the changes happen really fast. And so if you're trying to time a person on how long they've been dead, you need to learn what that process is and how it changes hour to hour. And I'm still learning because I really never had anybody to train me on that, because I've basically just created this job from nothing. I only learn when I'm seeking to learn. And so I don't have anybody on a day-to-day basis to show me, the work.
So you're just a sponge of
absolutely
of information and just a question machine when you do have that doctor next to you and you're doing an autopsy. What's that? Who's this? What's this? Does this mean that? Does that mean that? Okay.
Yeah.
So go over, you just mentioned a couple of things that were one of those 17 syllable words that we talked about a little bit ago. So petechiae, what is that for people who may not know?
So when I say that, I'm thinking of specifically an example where somebody may have been strangled or strangled themselves for suicide. So maybe they've created their own noose with a belt or something, and they've killed themselves that way. So asphyxiation under the eyelids primarily is where you'll see it, in the conjunctiva of the eye, the whites of the eye, the sclera. You'll see these little pinpoint marks that are tiny little broken capillaries, and so you kind of know the places to go to look and see if that's there. And so in the textbooks, they say that you'll see that with a strangulation or asphyxia from a suicide. And it's interesting because I don't see it often. So it's cool because my job translates from the living to the dead. So when I see a SANE patient that may have been strangled or is having a hoarse voice or a sore throat or drooling, I'm going to check them out for strangulation. And that's a whole assessment that we're doing. But also I'm looking for the petechiae under the eyelids.
Right. Okay. And then you said
the other places too.
Where are those?
Well, it could be in the soft palate of the mouth. I mean, it could be so many places, but because you're thinking it's a broken capillary. So wherever we have capillaries, you're going to see that. But I mean, it's like a sensitive place. So the eyes would make a lot of sense. If you have something around your neck, you're going to be creating all this pressure, this exertion. And so primarily that's where you'll see it. But man, it's so different to learn from textbooks than it is in person, because there is not one case that's like another. They're so different.
Right.
And like I said, when you're dead, things change. So you might have a clue at hour 1 that's going to disappear or fade on hour 12. And then you put them in a cooler once they're at the funeral home, and then that's different. Or if the body is in the elements like rain or hot weather or cold weather or whatever, that's all factors that play into it.
So I've been to some autopsies, and so, obviously they are what they are. They're getting opened up and stuff like that. Are they how long does it take for them to get to that point where they're just cadavers? They're just used. We can start opening them up. They've been, I don't know, we drain them, right?
No.
And so everything's still there. So everything's still intact.
Everything's there.
At what point are we able to open them up and start going through that? I mean, can we do that within a week? Can we do that within a couple days?
You could do it.
I mean, obviously,
1 minute after they die.
right? But I mean, on the average, we're going to do an autopsy.
Yeah. So, I mean, it depends on when I get the notification. So depending on so I'll just say broadly speaking, it's going to happen on a weekday. So if somebody dies on a Friday, they probably won't autopsy them until Monday or Tuesday.
Okay.
And that just depends on the medical examiner's schedule, the funeral home's schedule, when we can get all the stars to align. So everybody's there for that to happen. But the autopsy itself takes hour and a half tops usually, unless it's like a homicide. And those are very, very tedious and long drawn out and things like that. But if it's a run of the mill autopsy, you're trying to find out their cause of death, hour to hour and a half. Our ME's doing the work with an assistant, and that assistant could be me, it could be the funeral home director, it could be somebody else. And you're just another set of hands. You're doing the exact same thing, but internally it's head to toe. It's every single organ. You're weighing it. You're dissecting it. You're putting it in formalin to look at under a microscope later. You're taking postmortem blood for toxicology, and you'll get those results. Well, for our state, it's a 4 to 6 month turnaround. It's a long time.
Right. All right. And so you're looking at that on the criminal side. You're looking for things that are, so you can present this information to the investigator, to the detectives or whatever. And so then they can look at it and say, okay, they found, abrasions, or they found ligature marks, or they found the kidney it had too much alcohol in it, or there was maybe some kind of poison inside the person, or whatever the case may be. You're finding those things, and then you're delivering that information without any kind of you don't put your belief or your thoughts to it. You just say, hey, this is the
no bias.
This is the findings. This is what I see in there based off of the experiments or whatever it is that we've done. And here you go. Correct?
That's right.
And so then you give that to them, and you can easily be called in as that expert witness then that I spoke about before.
Yeah, it hasn't happened yet for the death investigation side, but for SANE, definitely.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so when you are doing this, when you're looking at these people, you're seeing, and once again, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're seeing these people who have come in here who are now no longer with us. They're obviously dead, but there's family that's looking for answers. We're doing this. So you're not just doing it just for a job. You're not just doing it as the next thing, but you're finding there's a real reason to be doing this, and that is to honor that person, because that could very well be your family member. That could very well be, it could be you, and you want somebody to be respectful and take care of that and do the job thoroughly.
Yeah, I think about that all the time.
What do you think about that?
What a unique position it is, because this didn't exist for a long time, or not in the same capacity. And so one of the things that's been so great about this job is that I do speak with family members quite often. And so whether or not we autopsy, I really like explaining the job that I have and the purpose of our medical examiner program, and why it is the way it is, and how we get to the point of signing a death certificate. Because I have access to people's medical records, I have a better understanding of that person's health beyond just what that family member thought they knew about that person. So I think it's neat, because I've had a lot of conversations with people that are just really upset. They're mad, they're distraught, they're not understanding what led their family member or friend to die. And often I can shed a lot of light on that, and people are really appreciative, because no one else has really spent that time with them to explain it, or didn't even know enough to be able to do that. So, I it's just another way of taking care of people that I didn't even know existed a year ago.
Right.
I catch myself saying patient all the time about these people that are really decedents. Like, that's a new word for me. I don't ever use that in my vocabulary until recently, but that's what they are. And so I can tell you that like 100% of the time, people are super respectful of the dead. Like, the funeral home workers that I work with daily are amazing and the most kind people you've ever met. And even though their job is super weird, just like mine, they're very professional. And like, we do our best to make sure these people have dignity. And like, I don't like to leave people full naked out on the table. Like, I'll try and cover them up if I can. Cause I think like, if that was my parent or grandparent, I wouldn't want that to be that case for them, you know?
Right.
And just be like so callous that, you know, it's just a body, you know, it's somebody's loved one. And when I get seen pictures from people that have died, like, they look so different than pictures on the wall of themselves with their family or their driver's license.
Right. Them smiling, holding their kids or doing whatever. It's a total different. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's humbling for sure. Cause I mean, it makes you think about what happens after we die more than when you're around dead people all the time. So,
right. And I don't mean to be crude or anything like that, but do you see yourself every once in a while, are you becoming callous to the grossness of it? Or are you developing a weird, dark sense of humor? So you can.
I already had that.
Sure. Okay. We'll go with darker sense of humor.
Yeah. But I don't have people to share that with. So that's the other weird thing, because I just do this mostly by myself. So it takes a unique person for me to share what I'm doing.
Right. Well, I guarantee you talk to cops, they'll be just as dark and they'll be just as not disrespectful dark, but you get it. You know, there's a different side to things. So so you're doing that. You're finding the reason why somebody dies, so then you can get that death certificate signed. Are you taking that information that you get in autopsies or whatever kind of exam that you do, and then giving that to that person's doctor, or is everything turned over now to the medical examiner and he can sign that death certificate? How does that work?
Yeah, so I'm only investigating thoroughly if it's going to be a medical examiner case. If it's something where we're just not sure if the person has a doctor, I will do a little bit of digging and then reach out to that person's doctor and say, hey, I know that they have X, Y, and Z comorbidities. And I know that you know that. And I know that because I know you saw them last 2 weeks ago and you've prescribed all these meds. So you can't punt it. People are really hesitant to sign death certificates because they don't like saying they don't know why someone died. They're unsatisfied. They don't want to put like unknown natural causes. That's not a reason why somebody dies, at least not one that you're generally comfortable with. But I will tell them, but they had hypertension, they had diabetes, they were obese, they smoked. All of these are contributing factors to their death. So it's okay that you don't know what killed them, but we have all these other factors that come into play. That's good enough.
Right.
And those are the conversations I have with families because they're pissed. That's not a reason why their family member died. They're not happy with that. But that's when I say, well, you and I both know that wasn't a good way to live your life. They weren't healthy.
Right. Yeah.
And eventually it's going to cause somebody to die. And so people usually accept that. I mean, people want to deny it, but
yeah, we all know living unhealthily is what's going to do you in. I mean,
so I have to say that as politely and gently as I can without being blunt, like, well, they were a smoker. What do you expect? It's going to get you eventually.
Right.
And also the medical examiner, even if that person was a medical examiner case, he's going to say the exact same thing. He's not going to autopsy that person. So yeah, those are the hard conversations to have with people. And the other thing is you can choose to pay to have your loved one autopsied. So if you've got a cool $3,000 to $5,000 to spend, you can have that done. in our state.
But otherwise, we're looking at the majority of autopsies are criminal cases, trying to determine if what we think this person died from is actually what they died from. We think we found a knife wound in their back. We're looking to see if that's actually the case.
Yeah, I wouldn't say most are criminal. I don't know of a percentage, but I would say the ones that are what we do would either be like a homicide or an unknown. Mm-hmm. So it could be like a young, healthy 30-year-old that died. Why the heck did they die? There was no reason for it. Or a kid, young, healthy, no pre-existing conditions, we'll autopsy them. So those ones aren't necessarily criminal, but They are a big question mark that we're going to investigate.
Right. I'll tell you, I know, and I've talked about this before, is, there's SIDS deaths, and I can only imagine how difficult that would be to have to do something like that on. And because
just had one yesterday.
So, I mean, you just don't know. I mean, there's no outlying reason. And is there, I've never been to an autopsy of a SIDS death, but is there ever there closure on those, or does it turn out that we don't know? Are you not able to find out?
Yeah. So the first thing he'll do in those circumstances for pediatric death is autopsy to see, is there anything overtly obvious that caused this baby to die? They'll collect blood for toxicology. So that's another huge factor. Was there fentanyl in this baby's system? Well, yeah, that's what killed them. And now it's criminal. Or the third thing's going to be then, if both of those things are negative, it was a normal autopsy, tox was negative. He's going to do microscopic tissue studies and look at those tissues from the organs from autopsy under a microscope. And if those three things are negative and everything's normal, then and only then, my understanding is he can call it SIDS.
I see.
And yeah, I mean, that's a broad term where you're really not satisfied probably by its sudden, unexpected death. Like, that's terrible. So, but I mean, that's where we're at. I don't think that we can do anything more at this point.
Right.
That's where we are. So
what do you do? So you deal with these things. Some things are just dark, and you, like you said, you develop a dark sense of humor sometimes, or what do you do? What does Nurse Lindsay do to go and offload a lot of this stuff? Because as much as police officers, firefighters, everybody, and veterans and everything, we see all this trauma. As you've seen your fair share of trauma, nurses see a cajillion times the trauma, with whether it's death in the ER or people coming in, arms hanging off by a thread, or in this case now this death that you're seeing, and these compartmentalizing. How do you offload this out of your psyche?
Yeah, I have a few select friends that I know I can talk to about this weird stuff. But mostly exercise has been my biggest outlet.
And so not only is it just exercise, you go for a walk when you get home from work at night. That's not what you're talking about. It's a little bit more than that, right? Or a lot more than that.
Yeah, it has been more than that in the past. Yeah, I have done all kinds of different stuff. When I was just starting out in the ER, I got really big into fitness competitions. Uh-huh. And so I did a lot of training for figure competitions specifically. And that was a great outlet. That was all your traditional bodybuilding bro movements.
Right.
Protein, counting macros and all that stuff. And I did that for a few years. And then when I lived in Hawaii, I got into Spartan races. Mm-hmm. And so I really loved that. That was a blast. And I wanted to do elite Spartan races. But once I moved back to Oregon, they really don't have that in our state. So it would require a lot of travel. So
right.
I gave that up, but it was a lot of fun. And then I drank the CrossFit Kool-Aid, and I've been doing that ever since.
So not only that, but you have a, if I'm not mistaken, your hashtag is Fit Nurse Lindsay. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. I used to have a personal training business. And so I called that Fit Nurse Coaching. Uh-huh. And I did that for a lot of years too. So that was another income source, but it was also just really, really fun. Because I I loved it. And I liked sharing that with other people. And so I got into health coaching and personal training and group training and stuff like that. So that was fun. And when COVID hit, I got a killer deal on some Rogue fitness equipment, and I just created my own home gym. Mm-hmm. And I've had that now for a couple of years and use that as a way to train people at home. And yeah, now I'm back at CrossFit because it's just, I need to get myself out of the house and push myself. And also just, I didn't want to think too hard. So I wanted somebody else to do the programming.
There you go. And you get around get around other people, and they're CrossFitters, sure, but they're normal people. Yeah.
It's all kinds of ages and
as normal as CrossFitters can be.
That's right.
Just kidding. I understand. No, but it's normal. It's not people that are dealing with that. You got bankers and you got, just regular people that, they go to work, they come home, they take their kids to soccer practices, they go do whatever, and they're just normal people. They're not thinking about death, and they're not thinking about trauma, and they're not thinking about stuff like that. And you can disconnect from that, right?
Yeah. I mean, people don't know like what I do. I say I'm a nurse and nobody usually asks questions, but if they do, I say, do you really want to know?
Right.
This is going to be a long conversation, right. But a lot of people are interested in it, and that field is growing. But yeah, I just want to check out for an hour and work out and not think about anything and listen to good music. So that's been great.
I'm thinking of not a line of questions, but more of a general idea here is, what's your idea in regards to fitness? What is your idea as far as importance of it? What is the idea of if you had your druthers and people said, "Hey, Lindsay, what should I do? How should I do something? Or how should I be eating? How should I be working out?" What would you say?
Yeah, well, it's a complicated thing to answer, but generally speaking, I think most people can agree that if you just get out there and start moving your body, whether it's just walking your dog twice a day or walking on your lunch break at work, that's going to provide endorphins that are huge and might just change the trajectory of your day. I mean, you are moving your body, you're feeling better, your heart rate's going up. I mean, I don't know. I'm addicted to it, so I can't see a downside, but I think that most people would agree that if you're just outside getting some fresh air and moving your body, or even just at home stretching, it's going to feel better than before you started.
And what's your addiction? Where does that come from? What is that?
Great question. My dad was a bodybuilder, so my parents were both very active when I was a kid, and I had to be in good shape to be an equestrian. I did all kinds of different riding growing up, like I said, and so I'm not saying you have to be in good shape to ride horses, but it definitely helped. I mean, everything you do on a ranch is exertional, so it only made sense to keep up with the work and be active. But I think the biggest thing for me was I have always had very strong shoulders for a female. And I got asked over and over and over, I can't count how many times, if I did fitness competitions. And I had no idea back then what that even meant. And so the way that I got into it was just by Googling it. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And I, in nursing school, was super stressed and very, very busy. And I got a job working at, I think it was Anytime Fitness back then.
Uh-huh.
And I just met people that had similar interests, and I copied women. I copied members that looked like they knew what they were doing, because I never had a personal trainer and I just didn't know what I was doing. But I would follow people, probably creepily, and do what they did. And then once I started getting asked if I was a competitor, I didn't know what that was. And I looked it up, and then I found a coach, and then it just, I don't know, I just fell in love with it. So I think people need to find something that resonates with them, whether it's yoga or running or whatever, but figure out what it is that you're wanting to get from it. Is it just a mental mental release? Is it the sweat and the adrenaline that you're getting from that cardio? Is it better for your joints, that stretching that you could do, or the yoga? I mean, all of it to me is so important, but and then the community aspect, like if you're going to classes, maybe you find your group of people there that help hold you accountable, and vice versa, and also there's so much out there on the internet that's free, that are apps on TV. I mean, you don't even have to leave your house to exercise these days.
Right. So Joe DeSena, you know who that is? Joe DeSena. Are you familiar?
No.
He is the creator of Spartan Race.
Oh, really?
So he wrote a book called The Spartan Way, but it's in his book. It's actually really cool. He kind of lines out how he grew up and then how he decided to start Spartan Race and all the things that he went through to get there. His big thing is get off the couch. Just get off the couch. And no matter what you do, get off the couch. And you can be, like you said, go for that 20-minute walk or whatever, or actually do something more and say, people say, hey, are you doing this? No, I didn't think about it. Do you think I'd be good at it? Obviously, they wouldn't be asking that question if they didn't think you were good at it or you had an opportunity to be good at it. So you said, hey, I'm going to get off the couch. So you didn't specifically use those words, but that's the idea. You talked about Spartan Race before. Your mindset was surrounded by getting off the couch, go do something, make your body move. And I think that's awesome that you did that. So,
yeah.
I know we're up against the clock. I wish we could make this a 3-hour one like I have before, but you are a busy person. And I thank you so much for taking some time out to come and talk with us. Where could people find you? Actually, I know I do have 2 questions I want to ask you before we get to there.
Yeah.
One, at what point in your career, I know it's only been 10 years and all that stuff, but at what point did you notice that you started knowing how to do your job and knowing how to do it well? Because just because you graduate school doesn't mean you know how to do your job really well. There's a point. At what point did you say, you know what? I know how to do this and I'm pretty darn good at it.
Oh gosh. I mean, I think that's a hard one to answer. On one hand, I couldn't put a time frame on it for when I felt that way, but also I know that I'm somebody that's never going to feel extremely overconfident in what I'm doing because I know that there's a lot to learn from. Did you ever have a case that you were like, I know exactly what to do. I know what I'm doing. And here I go. Yeah. I mean, the redundancy of the protocols that you follow, like say in the ER for certain presentations. Yeah, that repetition is great. And that's how you become confident in what you're doing. I can tell you with any job, I have noticed, because I've had a lot of different jobs over the years, for some reason, 3 months is that magic number. If I can stick out any job for 3 months, by then you've passed all that stupid onboarding stuff, all the questions of where things are and who's who and all that nonsense. 3 months for me was always the number where I thought, okay, I'm not stressed about going into work anymore. But now I can focus on the job at hand because all that other stuff is gone. I feel like I got it. Right. I don't think, I know I'll never feel like I know everything there is to know. And that's why I've continued on for the nurse practitioner track, is because I want to keep learning. Mm-hmm. And so that's never going to stop. And it's nice to have a new challenge. I'm looking forward to that. I think that teaching people is a great way to feel confident about what you're doing. So like teaching back, training, mentoring, onboarding a new person, all of those I think are good ways to identify whether you're competent at your job or if there's maybe something you're a little weak on where maybe you need to kind of beef up on that. Mm-hmm. I've always found that teaching is a great way to kind of self-reflect. Yeah, I agree. I think it's a great way. You learn a little about yourself and you learn how to say, hey, if I don't teach these guys correctly, they can be wrong. They can be getting it wrong. And that reflects directly on me. So I need to be at my A game. And so
bringing it out that way. And I guess that reason I asked that question is because we all go through this time when we reflect back, we're like, okay, I know who I am. At what point did you know who you were? You were going through school, you're becoming a nurse, but there's a point when, as a human, as an adult, we start saying, you know what, this is who I am. Mm-hmm. Do you remember that? Remember that point?
I would say that has happened within this last year, because I finally feel like I found that calling. I feel like everything I've done in the 9 years prior was leading up to this. So it's what propelled me to create a position from nothing and to draw on all of my contacts and resources and not be afraid to ask for help and to be humble and saying, like, I don't know what I'm doing. Can you help me? And reach out to people that know exactly where you're coming from. And I had a nurse mentor, and she was that for me. And she knew exactly where I am now, because that's where she was, but 20 years ago. Right. So I think that that's huge. And then, like I said, it propelled me to become eventually a nurse practitioner. And I was hesitant to ever go back to school. I didn't think I wanted to waste my time and money when I didn't have that passion or didn't know what I wanted to do. I've never wanted to be like a primary care provider. Like, that sounds boring to me, but to do forensic nursing as an NP and like take care of kids. I mean, my ultimate goal is going to be working at the Children's Advocacy Center as the provider for victims of child abuse. That's cool. Like, that's my calling. And I can say 100% in this last year, I feel like this is where I want to be. I wouldn't go anywhere else unless I could have exactly the same kind of job.
Very cool.
And it's so unique because there's not a lot of nurses out there that even know that this exists, or maybe they have heard about it, or a SANE nurse especially, and they just don't know how to get their foot in the door. Right. So like I was telling you earlier, I just created an Instagram page specifically for forensic nursing. So I don't know what's going to come of it, but it's exciting to be able to share that information with people.
That's awesome. So my second question then is, go back and look at, 9-10-year-old little Lindsay, that little girl. Think about her. Can she, if you were to go back in time, or she can come into the future, would she be able to meet you and say, this is who I want to be?
Yeah, for sure.
See, I want to be that person when I grow up.
Yeah.
That little girl wearing the Roper jeans and the Roper boots and the button-down shirt and the big old cowboy hat can say, that's what I want to do. That's who I want to be. Even though I love this horse thing. Yeah. I want to be that. You can honestly look back at yourself and say this, I'm making that kiddo proud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's awesome. So where can people find you? You mentioned the Fit Nurse Instagram page.
Yeah, well, I have just a personal page, but the one that I would share with you guys would be forensic.nurse on Instagram.
Do you have any other website or anything like that in regards to that? Are you looking at making more of it? And what can they find on that Instagram page then?
So I just created it in the last week, honestly. And so I so far have addressed topics like we have today. So what is a SANE? How do you become a SANE? What is a Medicolegal Death Investigator? How do I become one? I mean, my title broadly is Forensic Nurse Investigator. And I think that could mean a lot of different things depending on where you live and work. So there are things like a forensic hospitalist. So you could work in a forensic capacity within a hospital system. So anytime anything comes in that's like child abuse, sex abuse, self-inflicted, knife wound or gunshot wound, or possibly criminal, and that's been inflicted upon somebody else, you're right there taking forensic photography, forensic samples, working with law enforcement. I mean, it could be a full-time gig for somebody in like a city, with tons and tons of patients that roll through every single day.
Right.
Or maybe you're on call, working within a big city and going to different hospitals depending on the caseload. So it's definitely an ever-evolving area. I encourage anybody that's interested to look at the International Association of Forensic Nurses, become a member of that, get certified. And I mean, continuing education is on there. It's a great way to network. They have a conference every year. I just went in September to Dallas.
Oh, that's cool.
And that was a great time. So that was, what was it? 5 days of speakers from all over the world presenting. So you're getting the most up-to-date information. And again, the networking piece is invaluable.
Yeah, it's huge to do that. So you still get to do the SANE stuff. You're still that, but you're also working for the
county as a forensic nurse. A
county as a forensic nurse, but then you still work for the hospital every once in a while, right?
I gave that up, actually.
Oh,
yeah,
did you?
So
okay.
Forensics, yeah. So I just work. My other job is just the SANE company that contracts with our hospital.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So I'm on call a lot and getting up at all hours of the night.
Well, since you only work 20 hours, you have all this other time to be able to do that.
So that means
that's awesome.
I take a lot of naps because I'm up at the most random hours of the day.
I can imagine. So, so we can get a hold of you there. If you want to get a hold of, and this is for everybody else, you want to get a hold of the What's a Hero podcast, you can find us on Instagram, we're on Twitter, and we're on Facebook, and we are on, I'm on LinkedIn too. And we do have our website, which is the What's a Hero podcast.buzzsprout.com. You can go there. You can find all our previous episodes, plus links to whatever podcast platform you might like to listen to us on. You can go to those platforms. You can subscribe, and they'll let you know when the new episodes pop up, usually every Monday, and then you'll be able to listen to us. So while you're going, hopefully, to not have to deal with Nurse Lindsay here, but maybe you're on your way to CrossFit, or maybe you're at CrossFit and you're going to work out like she says you need to get off the couch. You can pop up the podcast into your headphones and you can just work out, and you don't have to listen to whatever music the gym is pumping out through their poor speaker system. Whatever the case may be, you can have that, download it, keep it with you, share it with your friends. And if you are on the fence, you're trying to figure out, what do I want to do when I grow up? I've thought about maybe wanting to be a nurse one day, or I want to be a cop. You know what? You can do both by being a medical legal death investigator, and you can figure out what you can do from there. Or if you just want to help people, honestly, you can become that nurse. Or if you have people wondering, hey, I'm thinking I want to do that. It is, how rewarding is it, Lindsay? How rewarding is this?
Yeah, extremely. You just have to find the good in everything, because there's a lot of little bring you down, sad stories, crappy patients, people yelling at you, doctors yelling at you. But yeah, you got to find your reason to get up in the morning to go to work.
Right. But if you didn't do it, who would?
That's right. Nobody.
Yeah. I mean, and if it is, there's 100 other people that are in line to do it. Yeah. But are they going to do it as good? Are they going to do it with the heart? Are they going to do it with that passion that you have? So that's something that you got to remind yourself of. So it's great to have people like you doing that. If you are looking at maybe getting into shape, you're like, I'm not sure about CrossFit. And you're like, well, I got a gym, but I'm not sure about that either. You can go to A Dose of Ethos. And if you use the code What's a Hero, you get 10% off all their products, their programs, and they'll be able to set you up to prepare you to get in shape. Now, you don't necessarily need to be in shape to be a nurse, but unlike Lindsay, she makes sure that she maintains a bit of health and fitness. I was going to say in shapedness, but that's not really a word. Fitness. But I mean, obviously people are people, and stresses and everything else, weird schedules, weird hours, they aren't necessarily conducive for maintaining health. However, you go to Dose of Ethos, type in that code, you'll get that 10% off. That's also, shirts and hats and everything else, but you'll also be able to get workout programs and food programs and stuff like that, which is awesome. So check those guys out. And, but I just want to thank you for coming on. I appreciate everything you do. It's great to have you, to know you, and the fact that you're doing the work you're doing. You are honestly doing God's work, and that's why we are on this planet, because He wants us to work with other people, which is cool.
Well, thanks. That was a great conversation. Yeah. It was fun to be on here.
Yeah. And so with that, I do want to say thank you to all of our firefighters out there. You guys doing everything you're doing. EMTs, Border Patrol, Secret Service, all of you guys, law enforcement in general, police officers, thank you for you guys keep us safe and do the things that we're able to do what we need to do because of you guys and our veterans. Thank you so much for keeping us safe and keeping us the country in which we are. We are free. If you compare us to how we used to be in the world or even other countries, we have the best country in the world, I think. So politics notwithstanding, but we're not going to talk about politics. And to our teachers, thank you guys so much. And ultimately, thank you, nurses. You guys are right there trying to do what's right, trying to help people even when they don't want to be helped. And the appreciation we have for you guys is, more people need to appreciate you and understand what you're doing. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
So, Lindsay, do you have any final words for everybody you'd like to throw out there? Any words of encouragement or things you want to, if you had one last opportunity to say anything on your mind or on your heart, this is your time. 5, 4, 3, 2. Okay, she has nothing, ladies and gentlemen.
No, I do. I have one thing, and it's just your good old reminder that never stop learning. I've taken so many crazy opportunities to learn and take classes and continuing education and certifications, and some of it stuck and some of it didn't. But if you have an interest, go for it. I mean, this is a very unique area to work, and I only got here because I was persistent and networked and asked lots of questions. So I encourage anybody else to do the same.
That's right, because ultimately, when you're going to need to be training somebody to do your job now, because you're going to be moving on. Mm-hmm. So you're going to need somebody that's willing to ask those questions and take over for you.
Yeah, that's right.
So, well, so thank you so much, Lindsay, for coming on. I appreciate it. The work you do, like I said, it is valuable. Keep it up. You have my support. You have a hard road ahead of you, and like I said, it's just appreciated. So for Lindsay, I've been Ken Frownfelter, and this has been the What's a Hero podcast. We're clear.